All right, well, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kevin.
I'm Tarsha.
This is Conversations with the Crawleys. We do conversations about a whole host of things. And if you're watching us on Facebook, this is just kind of a sneak peek, a preview of what we do over on our YouTube channel as the YouTube relationship coaches. I think after 27 years of marriage, I think we got a little something to add to the conversation about relationships. And so over on our YouTube channel is where we have a lot of those conversations. And this is a segment that we just started not too long ago called Empty Nest Chronicles. And so we have conversations, not just conversations about relationships as far as what we've seen and what have you, but we also are inviting some of our friends and other guests to come on and help us to kind of talk and dialogue about different things that are faced in relationships. So with that said, anything you want to add? Okay, so if you haven't already, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hit the like, request notifications. We will see you in the comments. In fact, we are live, so you can hit us in the comments. If you got questions for our guests, go ahead and do that. And we will definitely see you there, and we'll keep up with you. All right, good to see folks already liking and sharing as well. And if you haven't shared, what you waiting on?
It's free.
Right.
Sharing is caring.
Just do what you're supposed to do. You've been in these social media streets long enough. Okay. You know that.
Stop being stingy. My God.
All right. So here's the thing. We're going to bring on our guest. We have known him almost actually about 27 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, because we'll talk about how we met because that was interesting. Yes. All right. So my good friend, if you watched me on our Chop It Up, the podcast that I had, he is one of my brothers one of my brothers from another mother. But Taurrie Watkins, and we are today talking about Suddenly a Widower. Everybody welcome Taurrie to the conversation. We can give him a little clap. Where's the clap? There's the applause. Yes.
My people. What's up? How are y'all? Hey, Queen Tarsha, how are you? And my brother Kevin, how are you?
Good, man. We are good in this space and age right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's been, Ashley's 30 now. And we moved when she was 3. So it's probably close to 28, 29 years, probably. Right. It was right after y'all got married. So how long have y'all been married?
We just celebrated 27 earlier this year.
Okay.
So it's been just about 27 years.
Yeah, 27, 28. Yeah.
God, can we talk about how we met?
Man, let's make it happen. You want to start it? You want me to start it?
I'll start it because it's. So we met at the church that we were attending at the time in Broken Arrow, the one that was attached to the school that we were going to, where Tarsha and I had met.
Right.
And it was one Sunday, I believe, after service. And Tarsha went to the ladies' room. And so I'm standing there being the dutiful newlywed husband, waiting on her.
Holding a purse?
I don't know if I was holding a purse.
No, I think I had to. Yeah, when I go to the bathroom.
Ain't nothing wrong with it, though. Just let you know, ain't nothing wrong with it.
I'm not really a purse holder unless it's. I do, but I think at that point I was like, nah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're not gonna see me holding a Chanel bag like.
Oh no, I'm grabbing that thing like it's a football. I'm not holding it by the strap.
Right. Put it under the arm. Tuck it under.
Hey, I'm not throwing it over my shoulder either. I'm not putting my arm through those loops. I'm not doing that either. Nah.
Exactly.
I act like I'm rushing through the hole. That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, Walter Payton. Shout out to your Bears. There you go.
Yes, sir. Not the Bears of today, but okay, that's a whole other conversation.
Whole nother conversation.
So I'm standing there being the dutiful husband, waiting. And this woman comes up to me and is like, "Hi, I need your phone number."
Oh, hold on. Time out.
I don't remember that
I don't
story.
think I've heard this story.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
No.
That is part of the story.
Okay.
Came up, asked me for my phone number.
Right.
And I was like, and then she was
No?
like, "Your wife Tarsha told me to get the number from you all."
Okay. Whew.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Because it was like, now we're in Oklahoma,
Right.
and I'm like, who is this woman
Right.
asking me
Why she asked me for my number?
for my phone number?
Right.
What type of church is this that I've been attending?
Swingers.
Okay. Yeah. So then, of course, she let me off the hook, let me know that my wife and her had been talking, had a conversation,
Okay.
and that was a good, maybe a good thing to connect. And so, therefore, that's why she was asking for my number, because this was before everyone had cell phones. So it was the one house number we had. And so that started really the whole process of us becoming friends.
Yeah.
Both of us were early in our marriage. I think you guys have been married, what, 3 years or so?
About 3 years, yeah, I believe at that point.
And so and then we started connecting through the marriage group that was at the church, and then watching Tyson fights for a while together and all that stuff. And even though we've lived in different areas, we stayed connected this entire time.
Yes.
You are the godfather of our daughter, our oldest child. So
I mean, I think I remember us also just hanging out, since there was a married group at the church.
Mhm.
And I think, were y'all like the party
Y'all
people?
were- yeah.
Y'all in charge of the parties? Because
Oh,
it's
the
like-
greeters. Weren't y'all the greeters?
We were in charge of the greeters. We weren't in
Okay.
charge of the parties, but there were many times where we just hung out. I mean, there
Yeah.
was a picture that I found. Oh God, we were living. Y'all had come to visit in Raleigh, and Asheville was small. And it was in that small living room at Oakwood, right across from St. Aug. And I'm like, I need to send that to Kevin and Tarsha. So I'll go back through, and because I was like, woo, I had hair back then. I had the high top fade. I mean, yeah, it was a few pounds lighter at that point. Yeah. But it was good times, man. It was a good time.
Good.
It was. And then Creasy was with us too.
Yeah.
Creasy was like,
She was. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, she was with you. Yep.
Yeah. So kind of just introduce, because we'll kind of jump into why, one of the reasons that we have you, and we'll definitely have you back for the second part of this story. But just kind of introduce yourself as far as who you are, kind of what's going on with you, and we can jump into our conversation.
Yeah, Taurrie Watkins, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I've been here in Oklahoma for 18 years, but I still consider myself a transplant. I'm originally from North Carolina. They keep telling me I'm an Oklahoman. I'm not embracing that yet.
Don't claim that. Don't claim
I'm
that.
not trying to. I'm not trying to at all, but they keep pulling me back in. Yeah, my wife and I moved here in 2005 after being in North Carolina for about 7 or 8 years. Like Kevin and Tarsha mentioned, Amy, myself, and Kevin and Tarsha met in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. We were part of that young marriage group, and we've been connected ever since. And like Kevin said, it's amazing how you've had friends over the years. You lose touch, moving from state to state. I mean, we've all been in states of Oklahoma, North Carolina, Maryland, Arizona, and of course where you all are from. So we've been all up. Y'all were in Texas at one point, were you?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't think it was Texas. That's Andrea. That's what I'm thinking about. So, there's been miles and miles of distance, but we have still kept in touch with each other. And I really truly believe that this was a union that God created, because that bond has always been there. And so I'm blessed, and I'm fortunate to be a part of y'all's life, and I will continue to do so for sure. But my wife and I got married in 1993. I didn't give birth, Amy did, but Amy gave birth to our daughter Ashley, and she is my one and only. And so We met at Oral Roberts University. She started in, I think, 91. I was already a sophomore, junior at that point. So we met. We were really, really good friends. And then that just blossomed into an amazing relationship. And then the rest is history.
Okay. And so, you have a question, or?
No, do you want to go ahead and start? I'll let you start.
Yeah. So as part of our Empty Nest Chronicles, and again, we have conversations that are geared towards relationships, and they are geared towards the different things that we encounter. If this is your first time checking us out, definitely go to the YouTube channel. We've had conversations with our good friends David and Miriam Berry, talking about being empty nesters and with aging parents as well. But Taurrie, you have kind of a unique story in that Amy, who you were married to for many years,
Mhm.
suddenly passed away.
Yeah,
Right.
23 years. It would have been our 23rd wedding anniversary in 2016. And we had literally just gotten off the phone. It was 4:02. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was still at work. She was calling me. And just like we have always done, and we vowed early on in our marriage that anytime that we would leave a conversation, whether it's on phone, whether it's in public, whether it's the house, it doesn't matter, that we would always end with saying, I love you. And so that was the conversation we had. I told her I loved her. She said the same. And 5 minutes later at 4:07, I got a call from a nurse from Integris, and she was right there when the accident happened. And she was trying to get Amy to wake up. She was unconscious. So, of course, I left work, called Ashley, my daughter, rushed to the hospital. And unfortunately, later that evening, actually early in the morning, she passed due to the injuries, internal injuries. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, for us, again, we are connected.
Yes.
Things like Facebook, YouTube have been helpful in that connection as well, right?
Yes.
And so I think it was that next morning when we're waking up and scrolling Facebook,
Right.
and I start to see the news, and I'm like, is this for real?
Right.
And I think for me, me and Amy had started reconnecting. And talking about family and going through, and I think we had talked within 2 weeks from the time we were informed of her passing. And it was just like, I think we never think about, when we talk about people we care about, love, not being there, that there's always going to be that next time, right? The next time to say hi, the next time to catch up. And I think in moments like that, when you're hearing that, it's just a lot of rushing of emotions.
Right. Because also the other thing that plays into it is that we are always thinking, oh, I'm expecting this to happen when we're 80, 90 years old.
Right.
Right. Not when you're, 40s and 50s, when now because of quality of life or even younger, now because of quality of life and healthcare and all these things, people are living longer. So it's not the same thing that may have impacted our grandparents and great grandparents where, 45, that's kind of to be expected. We're talking now lifespan being longer. So the thought is that you'll still be there. And I think we had even made the because we had recently moved to Arizona. And I think we had made the decision to definitely connect with you guys on our way from Tulsa to Arizona, because we were like, we don't know when's the next time we're going to be able to come out this way. So that was, we can say for us, it was good that we actually had that time just again to connect in person. But kind of, that's but really you're the one that it's impacted you. It's impacted your daughter, right? Ashley. So kind of talk us through kind of what that felt like for you. And as much as you want to relive, as much as you want to kind of go into that,
So, you know me, Kev, Tarsha, you know me also. I'm transparent and I'm candid. and that's the way I've been for the most of my life. So I don't mind sharing because little did I know at that point that this would be God's story. I didn't see it at that time. And just to fast forward to recent to now, there's a young man that, well, let me put it to you this way: we're having a book study for men in our church, and it's a small group right now. It's called Grown Man, and we're reading a series of 4 books. And one of the young men that I was partnered with, because we talk about the chapter, we have scripture memorization, and which is fantastic. So I absolutely love it. But he was talking to me a little bit afterwards and says, "Yeah, Pastor Julian, Pastor Steve told me a little bit about your story. Hopefully that's okay." And it didn't shock me, but I told him, I said, "No, I don't mind at all." And then literally that's when it resonated with me and it hit me that, okay, yeah, this isn't mine anymore.
That's good.
This is God's story. This is what he's writing. And and like I said, that's been recent. That's been within the past 3 to 4 months. And I think it's funny that you all, Kev, you approached me about this. I'm like, you know what, God, with you, there's nothing that's a coincidence at all. And one of my friends says, "Well, Taurrie, that's called a Godcidence." And I said, "You know what? I'm stealing that." I said, "I'm gonna give you credit 3 times, but after that, it's mine." And so that at that point, I realized, yeah, this isn't my story to tell about me. This is my story to tell about God. So that day, it was surreal. I'm not gonna lie, and it really did not hit me until the next morning. But and as I'm thinking now, and as I was thinking a few months ago, there were I don't know how many people were in the lobby. There was I don't know 20, 30 people in the hallway, about 60 or 70 in the lobby. I mean, I had no idea that Pastor Steve told me. And yeah, Miriam, that's yours. Take it and run with it. Yes. And there were 2 individuals that God had knitted us together, 2 husbands. And I remember leaving the room with Amy, Pastor Steve, Ashley, after they had prayed. And it's only the Holy Spirit at that point. I walked up to one of the gentlemen. I said, "Come here." I mean, literally, Amy had just passed like 15 minutes ago. And I literally had a word for both of them about their marriages, about what their future holds, and what their responsibility is in being men and being husbands that do the right thing. I didn't know. I do know where that came from, but at the time, I'm like, "What am I doing right now?"
Yeah.
And I remember one of the individuals you'll meet him. He's one of my groomsmen. You'll meet him, Kevin. Next
I just want to.
My bad.
No, there is going to be a part to this story.
Yeah.
So you can kind of, but you
I
gotta definitely make sure you stick to it.
I let the beans out. My bad. But anyway, yeah, I remember him saying to me, and he was telling his wife, he's like, "What is he doing?" But he said that will stick with him for the rest of his life. And so now I know why that happened, because this year I mean, we're talking 7 years later.
Yeah.
It's not my story. It's God's story. So that night went home. Actually went to go get some stuff. One of my really good friends stayed with me. My mom and dad would get on the plane. And I woke up that next morning, and that's when it hit me. I cried. I yelled. I screamed. I was hot as fish grease. I was pissed. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, why? I said, this makes no sense to me. And the way that it happened,
God, I want to know who were you pissed at?
Oh, I was pissed off at God. Okay. And I have no problem telling people that. I said, I literally, I was hot as fish grease. I'm like, why? I said, the stuff that she had gone through physically. And I said, this is what happens. And after I finished yelling and screaming and crying and snot running down my nose, there was a silence that happened. I just laid there and I hadn't gotten out of bed yet. I was still in recovery. My feet hadn't even touched the floor yet. And I remember him saying, "As plain as day, because I love her." And it brought me back to what the doctor had said previously, because he wanted us to know he wanted to know if we wanted him to go back in. He said, "There's nothing that I can do." He says, "But if you want me to go back in, I will." It was myself, Amy, Amy's parents, Amy's brother, sister-in-law, and he says, "But I will let you know that she is in the beginning stages of liver failure." If anybody knows anything about liver failure, it's a painful death, and she would not have been a transplant recipient. So that's not anything you want anybody to go through. It's incredibly painful. Your natural body, your filtering system is pretty much shot, so those toxins stay in your body. And so he said, "Because I love her, I'm sparing her from the pain that she was going to go through." It didn't make me feel any better,
right,
but it gave me a reason. And I said, and it was one of Esther Nix, one of my friends from church, and her husband passed last year. But she told me that year that there was a scripture that she had read, and she had no idea what God had said to me. And she gave me the scripture, and it was basically the same thing. Because I love them, this is what happened. And it floored me. So from then on out, I stood and I trusted God. And Kevin, Tarsha, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but almost a year to the day previously, in 2015, I preached the first sermon at our church, first sermon of the year. And that sermon was, whatever happens to you, no matter what happens in life, whatever the devil throws at, whatever circumstances happen to you, will you sing in the rain? Will you have not the patience of Job, but will you have the faith of Job? Will you have the praise of Job? That's why I got these. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Those are Job's words. And I literally preached that a year, almost to the day before Amy passed. And that whole sermon came back to me. And I said, God, okay. If I say that I'm a Christian, if I say that I believe in a God that I believe in, if I say that I am who I am, then I have to trust you. And that's what I did. There's still mourning. There were still times me walking in from the garage, getting to the laundry room and breaking down. That wasn't to say that there wasn't a grieving process. Ashley and I through grieving therapy. And it was amazing. And it allowed me to see some things within myself that I didn't realize were there. So, and I say that to tell anybody, there's nothing wrong with therapy. There's nothing wrong with counseling, especially when you've gone through something this traumatic that you've never experienced before. You have somebody literally ripped away from you without any warning. Not just me, Ashley. As a daughter. And so we both had to go through this together. So that was the initial feeling. That was the initial waves that I was experiencing after it happened. Of course, there was not of course, I thank God for the blessing. There was a huge outpouring, not just from my church family, not just from my family, but my Dell work family. I remember my dad being and saying, "We're really concerned about you being here." He said, "But between your church family, your regular friends, and your Dell family," he says, "that was amazing." He said, "I've never seen it was standing room only." And I think one of the great things from that is that one of a person that Amy and I both knew drove a long distance from, I guess 12, 16 hours away and gave his life to Christ that day at her service.
That's good.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And so I said, "Look," I said, "all right, girl, you're showing me up. Yeah. You're not here and you're still bringing souls in. That's all right. I'm okay with that." And just to see that and just to understand the legacy and the magnitude of her reach, her sphere of influence. I didn't understand the sphere of influence that she had on social media, on Facebook alone, until I saw the messages from people I had no idea who they were, that were going through the same things that she was going through. That let me, it put it in a whole different light, because I only saw it from this end, helping her through holding her hand,
Mhm.
massaging her legs,
Mhm.
combing her hair if I had to, and, things that nobody really knew except for myself and Ashley. Not even my mom and dad, not even her parents.
Yeah.
It was something that she was going through on a daily basis. And so all of that, I mean, there's so many emotions that happen within that 6 month to 12-month period that were just, I wouldn't say overwhelming,
Mhm.
but a lot of it really showed the love of God and who he is.
Yeah.
And I like something you said earlier, and I think this is something we try to do with our kids is before we end any call saying, I love you.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
obviously we don't want to look at the eerie side of it, but
Right.
at the same time, we have to know what reality is.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate you even mentioning again that being intentional
Yeah.
about being in your relationship,
Yes.
understanding that no matter what happens, even though sometimes I don't want to talk to you.
As we say, I love you. I just don't like you right now.
I don't really like you right now. I still love you, but I don't really
Right.
like you right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I get it.
Right. But
Yeah.
but you're still being say, you know what?
Mhm.
I love you.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to say. And then another thing,
Or the other way we put it is, I love you. You're like, I love you too. No, I'm reminding myself that I love you.
That wasn't for you. That was for me.
That was for
Right?
me. That was helping me to remember. I love you.
Like whatever. Whatever you need to remind
Don't
yourself.
hate. Don't hate.
But I think the other thing that you talk about that I've seen, I guess in the last couple of years, especially with COVID, not having the community
Mhm.
and mentioning the community because you guys have always been gracious to open up your home, to to break bread, have game night,
Mhm.
and I think as a couple, you always genuinely open as a couple,
Mhm.
and I don't think sometimes couples don't realize just their influence because you are one, as the
Right.
Bible says, and how important you guys were as not only opening up to yourself to other people, but people opening it up so that you created that community.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there was it's funny you said that, Tarsha, because early on when we're still in Tulsa, and even the first parts of being in Raleigh, after we moved from Tulsa, there were so many times that Amy and I were saying, why are people coming to us for this? We've been
Mhm.
married 4 years or 3
Mhm.
years or 2 years. And I remember God speaking to me specifically and saying, that's because I'm putting you all through an abbreviated crash course to help others.
Wow.
Because I'm like, I said, baby, in 4-5 years, we've been through things that most people don't go through in 15.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me and I realized, okay, if that's the ride that you're going to put me on, God, I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
Because as long as we can help others, that's what's important. So yeah, Tarsha, that's why we opened up our house. We
Mhm.
made sure that when we said, hey, if you need something, then we made sure that happened. I tell people now, I tell men now when I talk with them, I said, if you need something and it's 2:00 in the morning, I said, give me a call. I
Mhm.
said, I'll make sure that I answer. If I don't, then that means there's either I'm passed out and I don't hear anything.
Right.
Right.
But I will answer. And there's been a handful that have taken me up on that. Others are, oh, he's just saying it to be saying it. But no, it's the truth. Because I know what God has put inside of me.
Yeah.
And we did that together as a couple. And it was important. Even after Amy passed, I mean, I opened up my house to one of my coworkers. He's like, are you sure? I said, dude, I've got 3 rooms. One's an office. One of them's empty. I said, I've got space. If you
Right.
need it, it's yours. And so I did that last year for a friend of mine and their child, and I opened it up. And so I saw my mom and dad do that, and so
That's good.
credits because their house has always been the place where people come and gather, and they've done. I remember seeing it from them, so it's been instilled in me from a young age
Mhm.
that's how we operate as couples to help, as you said, Tarsha, as a community of
Yeah.
people to make sure that we don't do life alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
what the devil wants us to do. He wants us to do life alone so he
Mhm.
can get us off. He wants to get us isolated. He wants to put us off in the corner so he can try and pick us off. But when we stand arm in arm in the trenches and we're allies with each other, that makes us stronger. And so that's what I've seen over the years.
Yeah. And real quick, let me just jump in real quick. For those of you that are watching us on Facebook, look, you are getting a sneak peek, a preview of what we do over on our YouTube channel. So definitely I want to make sure if you're coming in, if you're joining the conversation midstream, definitely drop your questions, your comments in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. But also make sure you hop over to YouTube and search for the channel Conversations with the Crawleys. We do conversations like this over there all the time. And we're growing even more with kind of what we're doing with that. And so make sure you're sharing and subscribing.
And my question to you, now, Amy, your wife has passed. When did you realize that you were now single?
Yeah,
again?
That's good.
Oh, nobody's ever asked me that question. But of course, leave it to Tarsha to ask the hard question. Honestly, it probably didn't hit me until around October. She passed in January.
Okay.
It probably really didn't hit me until about October. And I know that may sound weird, but anybody that works a job and knows about open enrollment for insurance.
Oh, the reminder.
Yeah. And
Oh, wow.
Open enrollment. Yes.
And that's when I changed it from spouse family to just me.
Wow.
And that's when it hits. I mean, there was other paperwork that I had to fill out and all that stuff, but that was probably the first official thing that I had to put in writing or out in the interwebs that I am a widower.
Wow.
And of course, whole nother flood of emotions at that point. Because I literally had to sit back and said, I can't do this right now. I said, I can't. And I was at work. And I was like, I got to do this when I get home. I can't do it now. And that's when it first hit me. And you made me think, well, Taurrie, that's 9 months later. Why does it? Well, I don't tell anybody. That grieving never stops. It changes. It takes different forms.
That's good.
Over the years. And it's not the same as it was before because the scar and the wound will continue to be there like our bodies. Now, unless Jesus miraculously heals all these wounds that I have on my body or scars or whatever, that's the same way. But over time it heals and it covers up. But at that time it reopened up some ones, or actually opened up ones or created ones that I didn't know were there. So that was a whole different flood of emotions for me.
Wow.
Now, was this the time, were you already in therapy, or when did the therapy stop? Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yes. And that helped because Ash and I started therapy probably that spring. I God, it's been so long. Probably 2 or 3 months later.
Okay.
She went once a week, and then every other week I joined her because she needed her own separate. And her and I both did it together. And so from the therapy, from the counseling, the grief counseling, there were some things that I learned about myself. And like I said, I'll be 100% candid and transparent. I never knew what depression felt like until after Amy passed. Never knew what it felt like. I had empathy for individuals, but I didn't know. I could understand how, people go through certain things, but I didn't know what it felt like. And we talked through certain things. Because I remember Ashley asking me one time, Dad, are you okay? She asked me if I was okay, because there was like 19 Amazon boxes in my living room. Because at that point, that's what I was on. Like, I want it. I don't care. And I was talking to the therapist. She was like, that's probably a form of depression. It's a coping mechanism. And I said, you're probably right. Because at first I'm like, I'm not depressed. I don't get depressed. What are you talking about? I'm not depressed. I do it, but I didn't admit it. But then I realized, okay, yeah. So she says, what are some things that you like to do? And what are some things that bring you peace? I said, well, I love to listen to music. She said, what else? I said, there's nothing like just getting in a car and just driving around and listening to music with the window down.
Mhm.
And because I love doing it. I'm the dude where it's 72 degrees outside, it feels good. Everybody else has their AC on. I've got my windows down, my arms out, the sunroof is back. I've got phone blasting, Last Street Preacher. I didn't, blast from the cast.
Yes.
But and so she says, whenever you start to feel that way, just get in the car and do it. I said, you know what? And that's what I started doing.
Yeah.
And listening to music, get in my car, driving to a park and just sitting there and just contemplating getting away from the house. And so, which is one of the reasons why I made the trip to North Carolina. Ashley and I drove to do Amy's Ashes. She flew back. I drove back because I had not had any time outside of Oklahoma, or just outside of the house, I should say, for me to just not compress, but to work through all the emotions.
Yeah.
And I remember driving back, coming through Arkansas, which is desolate. No offense to anybody in Arkansas. But I remember there was a song, and it was "Say Yes." God, no matter what it is, I'll say yes. At that point in August, I said, God, whatever it is, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Now, that's not an easy prayer to pray. That could be a dangerous prayer to pray.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Especially when you've had a loss, especially when you are trying to work through, because something you said earlier, you were mad at God. And I think one of the things that we have to recognize, God can handle your anger at him.
Yes, he can.
He doesn't get put off because our limited understanding versus his infinite wisdom.
Right.
When there's a conflict or a clash between that, he's not put off by that.
Right.
And did you immediately get over it with God? Like you yelled at him,
and then next day he was like,
all right,
cool.
we good? Or was it? Did that take time as well?
To be honest, when he said, "Because I love her," it went away.
Okay.
It literally seriously did. And we actually had a worship night scheduled. I think it was either that January. I think it was either that January or that February. And Julie was like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." And one of the songs that I led was the one by Israel Houghton, which was never mind. I'm going to forget. I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to remember. But it spoke to that peace that God gives you, and we've always talked about a peace that passes all understanding.
Yeah.
And that's literally what that was. I can't explain it, but when he said strictly just to me, "Because I love her," that's all I needed to hear at that point.
Yeah.
And so me being mad at God, it dissipated after that. It really did.
Okay.
Did you ever think of times throughout the course of your marriage, like, man, did you go over scenes in your head where you guys had arguments, or
of course,
maybe you were like, "Oh, I was real stubborn here, and she wanted me to do this."
Of course,
did those kind of things come up as
yes,
regret or wishing that you'd done better? Did you have that moment where you were beating on yourself?
Yes to all of it.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes to all of it, because Kevin has his own cell phone. Tarsha, you have your own cell phone. You've got your own tablets. And after that, after Amy passed, of course, I had it all. And so I was able to see some things that she had confided with us, which is absolutely fine, because we need that person. We need somebody. And it was things that we had gone through. And I was like, yeah, I was a douche. I shouldn't have done that.
Wow. Well, hold on. Let's take a moment. You're now looking at the items she's left behind. You're saying her tablet, her cell phone, where she's just confiding in others.
It was to make it. It was one conversation, because after that I stopped.
Okay, you couldn't go any further. It was just
couldn't go any further because the guilt wasn't eating me alive, but it was palpable. And it made me think about a lot of our conversations. I'm the thing that gave me, I don't want to say peace, I don't want to say that made it better, but the thing that I still rested on was what you called out before, Tarsha, about being intentional, being purposeful.
Hmm.
Her last words she heard me say, the last words I heard her say were, "I love you."
Yeah.
Mhm.
That it didn't make everything better,
Mhm.
but from a person that is experiencing guilt,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
I mean, because marriage stuff happens like
Right.
it's every single. I don't know
Ups and
who.
downs, valleys, hills,
Yeah.
mountains, all
Yeah,
of that.
it happens. We just work through those things,
Right. Right.
and that right there, it helped. It didn't make it better,
Hmm.
but it helped knowing that the last words that she heard me say to her were, "I love you," and the last words I heard,
It's okay.
Yeah.
the last words that I heard her say to me were, "I love you," and that still means a lot to me.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
It does.
And for you to have the ability to not go further, right? Because a lot of times we do beat ourselves up,
We
right?
do.
After the fact, and we're like, oh yeah, I remember this conversation. I
Right.
remember saying this.
And it's something also, if we're honest, it's something that the enemy will try to use to draw you further into depression
Yeah.
and further into a period of where you're angry with yourself, you're angry with God, you're angry with everything. And so, yeah, having the wherewithal to focus on that last intention, right?
Mhm.
Because that's the one that becomes now the eternal intention,
Yeah, that's
Right.
I like that.
right?
Yes.
As opposed to, because we all, if you've been married for more than 10 minutes, you know you're gonna have this, right? Because
Okay.
we know some folks that got into arguments right after they said I do.
Oh, are you watching Married at First Sight? Is that what you've been doing?
We're about to watch that because the season about to kick up, and if you
I don't
watch
know if I can
Conversations
do
with the
it.
Crawleys,
I don't
y'all
know
need
if
to
I
go
can
ahead
do
and
it.
check out
Go
the
ahead,
YouTube channel,
subscribe.
because we're about to get started with that one too.
I just started up Love Is Blind, so I don't know if I can do both at the same
Oh
time.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Ashley's been telling me that one is juicy. Uh, hey, Ben, that's my peer, my coworker from Canada. We got
Okay.
Canada in the house
We
tonight.
got Canada in the house.
Hey.
Yes, but Tarsha, what? Just to piggyback on something that you said, and Kev, actually both of you, with that guilt piece. So
Mhm.
I knew there were certain things that I had to do in order to keep that from taking root inside
Yeah.
of me.
Yeah.
So I asked Ashley, I said, Ashley, I want to give your mama's Bible to someone. I said, is that okay? And she said, who? And I told her who the person was. She says, Dad, I'm absolutely okay with that. I said, all right. So I put it in a bag. I gave it to the individual at church. She loved it. She cried. That was the individual that I saw that Amy had sent the messages to, that she had confided in.
Mm. Okay.
And I said, you were her person
Yeah.
when you needed, when she
That's good.
needed you to be. So I gifted that to her. And that helped with that healing with the guilt.
Yeah.
And so there were certain things that I did along the way, but that was one of the major ones that helped with that guilt,
Mhm.
because we're human, and I don't want
Right.
anybody to think that that guilt is something that's put on people that are bad. There is not a single person on the face of this earth that's immune to human nature.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Not a single person. It's what we do with that human nature, how we react to it. And
Good.
are we going to allow ourselves to let human nature control us?
Mhm.
Or are we going to say, hey, this is how our bodies react. This is how our flesh,
Yeah.
this is who I am as a human,
Mhm.
but there's something greater that guides me and not just my human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that started that process also of that healing, not just from the loss of Amy, but
Mhm.
from that guilt that I experienced early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Because what I'm hearing, as we're having this conversation about you being a widower, is that, you're intentional about your marriage.
Yeah.
And that the last thing when you're apart before,
before we leave each other's presence. Yeah.
Yeah, that we say I love you. You guys made sure you created a community for you being a couple and building on that community. And then that community helped while you're married, going through this grief.
Yes.
And then deciding to do the therapy, not only alone, but with your adult child. Because at this time, I think actually.
She was an adult.
24, something like that.
And
say it again.
She's like 23, 24 at the time, right?
So that was 2006. She was 22.
Okay, yeah.
So
she was just getting ready to turn 22.
Yeah.
So, and being able to go through grief counseling together and apart and working through that. And now, you know, having to recognize that you're single, getting through some of the grief and the regret. And then when does it, I'm ready to date, come in to those things,
those thoughts,
those thoughts and those steps as we're getting close to ending here.
So I remember Ashley, she was in the closet and she was looking through some of Amy's stuff, and I'm sitting on the side of the bed, and she said, and this was, y'all think I'm lying. You're gonna think this is the wildest thing that a daughter would ask her dad, are you thinking about dating again? This was literally like less than 2 weeks after Amy passed.
Oh wow.
And
a year later.
Oh no, it was less than a month. I said, baby girl, I can't deal with that. So I don't know. I said, the dating scene now, I said, I'll be John Brown if I'm putting myself out there. I said, I can't deal with this. I said, to do this all over again? I said, you gotta be kidding me. I said, nah, fam, I'm not doing that. And I literally prayed. I said, God, if this ever happens, it's got to be you. Because I'm not walking up to somebody in church and ask for it. I'm not going to a club. I'm not.
Hey, Shawty. Hey, Shawty. Can I get your number, Shawty?
That right there made my skin crawl. I'm just gonna be honest.
Because you say go up to somebody. They don't go up to anybody.
I said it again, Tarsha.
I said, this is how you know you're old, because you're saying going up to somebody. They don't go up to anybody.
No, see, that's the thing. I didn't know this. I had no idea. I didn't know what sliding into a DM was. I'm like, my baseball player stealing home? I'm like, what is sliding into? I said, first of all, what's a DM? I had no idea. I'm like, what is it? So dating. I said, no, I can't do it. And so we'll leave that for another story. But that wasn't anything that I was looking to do, because for this reason, Amy and I met in college, and like I said, I'm transparent. Can't even see how much time we got through at the time. We got married, and Ashley was born like 8 months later.
Ooh,
so, right. This is nothing that we held under or swept under the rug. She got pregnant before we got married. I'm just gonna put it out there. Yeah, and so I was in college before that, and I lived with my mom and dad before that because I was 18. Right. So it hit me. I've never lived by myself.
Yeah, we got the similar story.
All the way through 18, college with roommates. Left college.
Yeah.
I stayed with the family for like 6 months, and then I got married.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't know life by myself.
Wow.
So that was a totally new venture for me. I mean, seriously, and at that time, Ashley was already out the house.
Right.
So I had not known life alone as a single person by myself, because there's always been somebody present. So that was a whole nother thing that I had to work through. I mean, you're talking about this one house by myself, just me, no pets, no nothing, just me.
You had the dogs? With the pets?
Oh, I had the dogs. Oh, they're not people. That doesn't count. They're not people.
Right. No, they don't count.
Any pet lovers out there? I loved my four-legged creatures, but you know what? They're not my children.
Right.
What you say? They're not my kids. So, but then that made it even worse. Buddy passed the same year, like that summer. he had like a swollen pancreas. He was a full breed, so they have issues. So
Right.
he passed. We buried him, and then and then Shadow, her Ashley's dog, passed too the same year. It was terrible. It was. I'm like, seriously?
Loss on loss on loss.
Yes, loss on loss on loss. Even though don't get me
Right.
wrong, we loved them. We cried.
Right.
It was terrible. But as far as humans, people, yeah, it was the first time. So that was a whole thing that I had not dealt with before.
Wow.
So that took some getting used to.
Yeah, because the other thing I was thinking is that, as far as the dating process, or after, especially after you experience becoming a widow or widower, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that there's a different mindset or different thought process if there is a lead up, right? So
Right.
if you're with your spouse and you're watching your spouse linger, and you are expecting their passing, right? Because there's an illness, what have you,
Right.
it may be a little easier to transition,
But when
because
it's abrupt,
you've been preparing,
right,
for that moment.
right,
But to go from today, things are, they're good, love you, you're here, and then tomorrow you're not there.
right.
That's a little different, especially when you've been married for many years.
Yes.
And it was a good marriage, right? Not saying that it was perfect, but it was a good marriage.
It
Y'all
was.
weren't,
Yeah, it was a
y'all
great marriage.
weren't every other day saying we done, right? Or
No.
every other minute, right? Yeah, we
Yeah,
watched your
We took a
relationship.
page from y'all's book. We took a page from y'all's book, and
Well,
I'll
we
say,
watched y'all.
even though y'all were married after we were, we took a page from your book to never say the D word,
Yes.
to never say
Yeah.
divorce, ever.
Yeah.
We made that commitment to never say that word. And again,
Mhm.
we learned that from you all. I'm a
Mhm.
proponent. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be older or younger than me. I can still
Mhm.
learn things from you. So we took that page from you, but we were like, you know what? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we never uttered it. It never crossed our lips ever.
So yeah, there is the challenge of, how do I, when I've been going this way for so long, all of a sudden now consider this, when, like you said, you haven't been by yourself, so you don't know what it's like to be an
Right.
adult male on your own in many respects, right? Yes,
Right.
you are, on your own as far as,
Right.
but not having your partner with you, or your
Yes.
partner there with you. And then all of a sudden now, I can't imagine, like you said, asking for numbers at church, or all of a sudden find yourself at the club.
Can I get your number? Work that updo, girl. Work that updo. No, no, I can't. I can't even form my mouth now to say it. I was playing around with Ashley actually today, and it was something about, oh yeah, I was brushing them off like it was dust on my shoulder back in the day. I'm like, I can't even say that without even laughing, because that's just not my character.
Right.
So that's never been my character.
Mhm.
So thinking about that now, I'm
Yeah.
like, no. And that's why I said, God, it's going to have to be you,
Mhm.
because I can't do it. I can't. I don't have the patience to go through that all over again in that format. Oh,
Right.
excuse me, I take it back. At that time, I didn't.
Yes.
At that time, I didn't have that patience at all.
Yes.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And as we'll talk about later, now of course, that patience came a little bit later.
Mhm.
Do you feel, as you're finding your singleness, and obviously you're working through all this, were you finding new things out about yourself in your singleness?
How much time we got?
How much time? People gotta go work.
Yeah. So and again, I'll be candid and transparent. I
Mhm.
told you before, there's some things that I realized about Amy after she passed.
Mhm.
It finally hit me, and I understood why clutter bothered her so much. Because whenever things are not in the place where they need to be,
Mhm.
it's in essence chaos. When things aren't where they're supposed to be, they're out of order. That's chaos.
Mhm.
And so for Amy, she admitted she was OCD. She would have, you know how when you buy your highlighters and they come in the package, and they're in a certain order. She would literally put a Post-it note on the back and put G P Y O.
I didn't know it was that.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that. It was like that.
You literally had to put them back in the same order. That's what she did. And I know I was evil. I was mean. I would get them and go, and I would just. She's like, Taurrie. I'm like, and I would just giggle, or I go and I turn the stapler over and face it the other way. But with her absence and with me being here by myself, and when things weren't done, it bothered me. It wasn't in order. And so I finally understood that, and now I see how now that's how I am. I've been that way, but unfortunately, I looked at it as my wife telling me I always got to pick something up. I don't like disorder either. I don't like chaos either, and so it hit me. But and people talk about it in when you see decorating shows, feng shui, the flow of the room. Because when things aren't done, like if you have to write a term paper and you keep putting it off, it's always back here.
Right.
Playing your video game, but it's always here, so your mind is never at rest. That's what was happening with Amy, and then that in turn was with me when the dishes weren't done, the laundry wasn't done, there's stuff on the floor. I'm like, okay, I got to get this done now, because if not, I'm going to slip into something that I don't want to slip into.
Yeah.
And so I found that out about myself, that order is a big part of my life. And I've always been an analytical thinker, and I've always been a planner. And that comes from order and structure and boundaries and rules. And so for me, Ash was like, well, I don't think I've ever seen it look like this. I said, well, that's because your mom. I finally see it now. And that's when some of that guilt also crept in, because it took her leaving for me to finally understand what she was feeling. Because when things were in order, it was always here. So her mind was not at rest. She was always thinking about it, because in the back of her head, these things, this has to get done. This has to get done. This has to get done. And now I see that I'm also that way because of who I am and how God made me, and being that analytical thinker, that planner, that structure. Just like the sermon that I was writing for this coming Sunday. People are like, oh, you've got it written already? I said, I have to have it written 7 days before I speak, because I take that time to prep, but I don't like to feel that pressure. Now, there will be tweaks that I make along the way.
Right, of course.
But I have it written, I have it down, I have what I want to say. But then, of course, God gives me certain things along the way, and I make tweaks and I change. But for me, from my psyche, from my mental stability, I can't wait to the last minute. I can't. Because that's going to bring chaos into my life, and I can't have that. I didn't realize that about myself until after she passed.
So it sounds like I feel like everyone has a balancer, right? Because like we say, we all have our different traits. We match with people that are opposite of us.
You saying what I was about to say.
I wonder why.
That's all right. That's that mind meld. That's all right. That's what happened. Right.
That, she was kind of like your balancer. And then a lot of times, we put it on them like, oh, well, like Kevin said, well, my wife says, but in turn, he really did need.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
If you say so.
Go and take it, brother. It's
if you say so.
Hey, it's okay. Swallow that Robitussin real well. It's okay. It'll make you better.
Okay.
I think this should be our last question.
Okay.
And I've heard Kevin say this, and I think maybe you've said it in the past. When did you know that you were going to be the type of person that you would want to get married again? And we kind of end on that note. Like, I've heard, like, I'm not gonna, I think Kevin would say, like, how would you say? He was like, I'm gonna get married again. If you ever leave the earth, Tarsha, I'm gonna find somebody.
I know me. I know my needs. Right. So
I'll go back to that conversation Ashley and I had. She was standing in the closet, and I said, Ashley, I don't know when that's going to happen. I said, but I will tell you this. Mom and I did have that conversation years ago that we don't want each other to go through life alone.
Yeah.
I said, I've seen it way too many times on both sides where somebody doesn't and they're miserable the rest of their life because we're not. For some people, that's what married. That's what it. They're built for that. Some people are not.
Right.
Like I've got an aunt. She's never been married. And she probably won't ever get married, and she's okay with that. But that ain't me.
Right.
And, and that wasn't Amy. And so
ain't my testimony.
No, that's not my testimony. So I told Ash at that point, I said that Mama and I had that conversation multiple times, well before she was even sick. So I knew that it was probably going to be a possibility. I just wasn't willing to go out and do that whole dating thing. That's why I literally prayed that prayer. I said, God, it's going to have to be you.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go through all that stuff again. I said I don't have time. I'm too old. My filter probably doesn't work the way it used to when I was younger. And so there's just certain things that I know who I am and I know what I would want. And I said, but even more ultimately, God knows not what I want,
what you need. Yeah.
God knows what I need. And so why put it in my hands to jack it up? And I put it in his hands. Okay, it's going to have to be you. And I told Ashley, I was reserved to the fact that if I was going to be alone, I was just going to have to make it work. I was reserved. I said, I came to peace with that. Yeah. And I think with me coming to peace with that, coupled with giving it to God, I think that was the perfect combination because I didn't go try to seek it.
Yeah. That's good.
I've seen that way too many times where people go out and just get the next thing that's warm, and that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
I hear you on that. I get it.
Yes,
I get
absolutely.
My filter doesn't work like it used to. So yeah, it's get the next heartbeat that walks through. Yeah, and so that's that.
Yeah. So
not to say there weren't many chances,
right?
Because there were. And then of course I got my little detective Ashley over there. I don't know if I told you this story. There was a little orange Post-it note in my car, and Ashley saw it. She called it because it wasn't my handwriting. It was some female handwriting. I'm like, Ashley, what are you? She's like,
Ashley, hey, where this come from?
Exactly. Well, and you know what? Here's the thing. I'm okay with that. I was absolutely fine with that because the roles had flipped. But it was my doctor's office. And so and she literally said, and whatever doctor's office, she would click. I was like, you didn't even say anything? You just hung up? And she said, no, she's Dad. I had to find out who it was. That was a female handwriting. I didn't know who that was, scoping on my dad. I was like, oh my gosh. But
that's
guess what?
Ashley. That's Ashley. Yes.
I'm absolutely okay with that. And I was okay with it then because I need that.
Yeah, for your child to think like, oh, my dad still got it. Like, he still can be reeling in fish right now. And I got to check.
I don't know about all that, though. I don't know about all that.
That's what she's saying.
Right.
That was, I mean, we actually talked about that today. It's kind of funny. But yeah. And so this is not conceited. This is not me tooting my own horn. She knows who her dad is.
Right.
And I it's funny. We just talked about this today. That I was that dude in middle school and high school and college. Oh, Taurrie's gonna make a nice boyfriend one day. I'm like, I'm sitting right here. Seriously? But she's like, well, Dad, they're not wrong. I'm like, no, they're not wrong. But at 15 years old, you don't want to hear that.
Right.
You don't want to hear that.
Right.
But I get it. I'm not saying that I'm I know who I am. This is what I need to say. I know what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And whoever I choose to have a chair at that table needs to be worthy of what I have, and vice versa.
Right.
I need to be worthy of what they have.
Exactly.
And so that's always been important to me.
Yeah.
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 And we can testify you being a good dude.
Yeah, because let's just say, with our friendship, there were others that were part of that circle that we were developing that we ain't still connected with.
Well, Kev, I don't know if you remember. I don't even know if Amy and I told you this, but while we were going, was it then? Yeah. While we were attending that church, we prayed a prayer. It was before y'all left. We both said, and we knew the dangerous prayer that we were praying. God, the people that should be in our life, keep them there. The people that should not be in our life, remove them.
Yep.
And we saw it happen, and we're like, why them? And he said to me as plain as day, because you told me to.
You asked for this.
Okay. And we let it be after that. So from that point on, Ashley was small. She was a baby. So from that point on, for the next 20 something years, that's what we stood on. And if they, and we even saw it when we were here, they would come and they would go. They would come and they would go. And something that we would also do is people think this is evil. We would vet people. And I tell Ashley this all the time. And anybody that's listening, I strongly suggest you do this. Tell them something that nobody else knows and see if it gets back to you. Or see if it's in the street. Because if you only tell them that one thing and it gets back, they're not trustworthy.
Right.
They're not meant to be the one that gets access to you.
Right.
I can have acquaintances. I can have people that I hang with, but not everybody deserves access to you. So Amy and I learned that at a young time in our marriage, and we took that to us, and I tried to instill that to Ashley and everybody else, that is important. Everybody doesn't deserve access to you. You got to vet people, because not everybody is meant to have that type of relationship. Think about Jesus. Hundreds of disciples, then he had the 70, then he had the 12, then he had the 3.
The 3, yes.
People don't realize that. And so
then if we take it even further, he had the one who he entrusted his mother to.
John. Exactly. And so
wait, I want to, who's that on the, okay, we'll talk about that a little later as far as that comment. We'll
what we do, because we're at
our time.
We're at time. Yes, we are.
But listen, if you have been watching this and have enjoyed this conversation, definitely make sure you are liking, subscribing, sharing. But that's not where the story ends, because we're going to have Taurrie back to talk about where he's at now. He's kind of dropped a few hints. But we're going to No, it's perfectly fine, because there is as we've been leading up towards the end of this conversation, there is more life ahead after being a widower, right?
Yes.
And so yes, he is a widower, but that does not mean that he is now going to never connect with anyone else.
correct.
Right.
So we will definitely make sure, that's why you need to make sure that you are connected to the channel. Make sure that you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, because we're going to have part 2 of this conversation coming up in the next couple of weeks, where we find out what's happening with Taurrie now.
Did he ever get in the DMs? Did he slide?
Did he figure out how to slide into them? Or did he did he do the centipede into them, or what?
Like this with a walker.
Hey. So we will figure that out as somebody else laughs about that too. But listen, we appreciate each one of you all stopping through on the channel.
Yes.
We will see you all next time. Have a great one. Be blessed.
Bye.
See y'all on the flip.